So I'm actually going to move into the next topic of this panel, which is UK law schools and articling in Canada or Ontario. So I guess Vinissa and Jeremy would have a lot to say on this because you guys have went to school in the UK. Mainly, could you describe for everyone watching the transition coming from the UK and then articling here? What did that look like? Did you have to do any additional programs, or you can just share on that?
Yeah, so again, my story in terms of getting articling and a first year associate position was largely based off the work I did when I was an undergrad during the summer, when I was in law school during the summer, because I had kind of already a bit of established, proven body of work that thankfully my employers had kind of given the thumbs up and either kept me on or referred me to someone that they felt was respected. I know with a lot of my other friends, they found it quite difficult in terms of securing articling positions. The biggest thing was they really had to take the bull by the horns and either cold call or speak to anyone, leverage their contacts. I think one thing people kind of discount is don't just speak to your network of friends in law school, but speak to your family members, speak to your actual friends in, whether it's from high school, undergrad, because maybe they know someone. Don't leave any stone unturned, because you are dealing with already a very competitive market, but then you're also kind of going against individuals who have gone to school in Canada and have all those additional resources that, frankly, UK law schools don't provide because there's no need for it. So I think as soon as the process should start when you're in law school in the UK, if you are planning to come back to Canada, and as soon as you come back, whether you decide to do an LLM through schools like Osgoode, or you decide to do the NCA process, but always have that in the back of your mind, because that's incredibly crucial. The last thing you want is when you've completed your NCAs and you're eligible to article. And I know some people took some time off to study for the bar before they articled, and suddenly they're just kind of without a paddle, and suddenly they can't find an articling position, not because they're not capable, not because they're not smart, but because they just thought that they could leave it to the last minute. So I think always having that in mind is incredibly important, especially when you're kind of going through the NCA process, because the next logical step is securing those articles in order to get called to the bar.
So for those of us who don't know, what exactly is the NCA process?
Right. So the NCAs are essentially, depending on how many you have to write, about 5 to 7 exams in which you have to prove that you have the equivalencies of a Canadian law school. So it's a pass-fail exam. You're typically just given the materials. There are resources out there in which you can hire tutors or simply just enlist in a course. I think Osgoode provides a few. And I believe the courses are Foundations, Criminal Law, Constitutional, Charter of Rights and Freedoms, and there's one other one that's mandatory. Professional Responsibility. One of the most important things you need to know, regardless of what area of law you practice in. And so you have to complete those, and then depending on what law school you've gone to and how many courses you've taken there, what course you've taken there, you might have some additional courses. I had to do 7. I know people that have had to do 12, which is a bit of a drag, but it really depends. But it definitely allows you to then and as we're talking about, because it's the next progressional step, whether or not it's securing an articling position, those are the types of cases, that's the type of knowledge you're going to need to know and that you're going to want to bring up in these interviews. Because if you have, whether it's 2 or 3 years law school experience in the UK, you're not really being exposed to a lot of cases that every Canadian law school student will have under their belt. So that's really your first taste of Canadian law. So it's very important that you take those seriously. And again, they're pass-fail. As long as you get a 50, you can go through. But it's definitely crucial you take those courses to heart, because those are the types of things. I remember my articling interview, I was tested on the very same things that I would have studied while looking over my materials for the NCAs.
And how long does it take typically to study for your NCAs?
My process, I was able to complete it in about 8 months. I know everyone's different though. I just was focusing on those exams, and I know that there are certain times in which they're offered. I believe they're only offered about 4 times a year. Again, though, I know some people work part-time and they study. For me, I was just focused. So I just wrote the first round in, I believe it was September, and then the second round in June, and I was done. But I know it's different for everyone because everyone has obviously different obligations.
Yes, thank you. Vanessa, actually, did you have a similar approach or path? I know you also went to law school in the UK at Kent University, so wondering what your...
So I did have a little bit of a different experience because I didn't get exposure to law in undergrad because I did a science degree, and I decided in my third year that I wanted to go to law school, so life changes. So I didn't get the exposure of interacting and networking with different law firms or being able to network at the time. But what I did realize was really helpful for me was when I was in law school, opportunities that they offered, whether it was in the UK, I took them. I did job placements. I worked at the legal clinic there. I joined projects like the Criminal Justice Project, which was amazing. You got to interact with prisoners and be able to provide advice to prisoners who didn't have legal, some sort of solicitor to be able to interact with. So those things actually helped me to gain experience when I came here. And when I came here, I did the same NCA process. I did it in 8 months as well, but I did 5 exams and I was working full time. So that, like you said, everyone has different obligations and there's no time limit really for you, like to put on yourself. There's no pressure, but you can break them up as you wish and just get them done. They're not difficult. You just need to make sure you like review the material and be able to but don't take for granted the material because it is an open book exam. So don't take that for granted, but do review the material. But what I did find helpful was I took any job that had some sort of legal experience. So I did a legal assistant position as soon as I came back, and I just gained experience on drafting, writing, researching. So that way, when I did apply to jobs, I had that as a backbone. And I was able to say, yes, okay, I wasn't a lawyer, but I have all this legal experience as an assistant. Now I can put it towards your firm and be a benefit. So those things help for me as well. And networking. Networking, it seems to be the key to everyone's job positions here. It was the same for me. I ended up, after the NCAs and writing the bar and the LPP, I ended up working with someone I knew at the previous office I worked at. And he opened his own law firm, so I ended up working with him. So it turns out that keeping connections and keeping good connections with people and asking questions is really key. So don't be afraid of the whole UK process. When you do come back, there is hope. I know people scare people. Oh, you're not going to find an articling position. You're competing with other Canadian students. You work hard, you can make it. So it is possible. So yeah, I would not deter from that if that's what you want.
Thank you. Would you recommend doing the LLM program here to help with the transition? Do you know anyone who's done it coming from the UK?
Me personally, I didn't do it, but I do know a few people who did do it. And it did help them in terms of qualifying their degree and accrediting their degrees, but I couldn't say as far to how it helped them with their article.
I think one thing with the LLM, I know there's obviously different if you just do the common law LLM, it almost replaces the NCA process. However, I think if you do want to get your LLM and you know what type of area of law you want to get into, just focus that. I know one of my friends, she did her LLM in environmental law, went to Sussex with me as well, and she did it at McMaster, and now she's working at MAG. So if you really know that you have a specific area of law you want to go into, I would say focus that even further and separate yourself from the pack and get a master's just focused in that area of law, because that's going to look great on your resume. Because, and I don't know how, again, I didn't do the LLM process, but I know certain firms just look at it as, okay, you replaced your NCAs and you went from there. But if you do kind of make yourself into a bit of a niche candidate and saying, well, no, I actually did my master's in this specific area of law, that separates you from the pack in the best way.